They said Maplewood Lane was peaceful, but the walls whisper at night. I saw her, standing in my yard, smiling, at the camera. And then. My name is Daniel Reeves. And what I'm about to tell you, I wish I could forget. A year ago, I moved into what I thought was the perfect neighborhood. Quiet streets, well-kept lawns, and the kind of peaceful atmosphere you only see in real estate brochures. It felt like a reset button for my life, after the divorce, after the breakdown, after everything went wrong. I found the house on Maplewood Lane, number 23, through a listing that seemed too good to be true. Spacious, affordable, fully furnished. The realtor kept calling it a hidden gem. I should have known then that anything described as hidden never stays that way. The first few days were quiet, almost unnaturally so. Every morning, I'd wake up to birdsong, sunlight through the curtains, and the faint smell of coffee drifting from next door. That's how I first noticed her, the neighbor. Mrs. Harriet Lorne. Middle-aged, elegant, with silver hair always pinned perfectly. She greeted me the first morning I moved in, carrying a basket of muffins she'd baked herself. She said, "Welcome to Maplewood, Daniel. I hope you'll find it peaceful here." Her eyes lingered on me a little too long when she said peaceful. I told myself it was nothing. Just small-town friendliness. But peace has a way of feeling wrong when it's too perfect. By the end of the first week, I started noticing things. Small, trivial things that didn't add up. Every night, around midnight, a faint humming sound came from Mrs. Lorne's house, like a generator, or maybe, chanting. Once, I saw light flicker through her kitchen window, a soft red glow, pulsing like a heartbeat. And then there were the visitors. People who came after dark, always the same pattern. They'd walk up her front steps, knock once, and disappear inside. I never saw them leave. Not once. I started keeping a journal because I couldn't sleep. Writing was my way of proving I wasn't imagining things. My therapist used to say it helped with my anxiety, that putting fear on paper makes it smaller. But the words didn't make it smaller. They made it real. One night, after hearing that humming again, I went outside. It was late, the kind of late where the air feels too still, like even time's holding its breath. I stood at the edge of her yard, watching her window. And then I saw her, standing there, perfectly still, staring at me through the glass. She smiled. And raised her hand slowly, pointing, directly at me. I froze. When I blinked, the light went out. She was gone. The next morning, she was watering her roses as if nothing had happened. She waved and said cheerfully, "Sleep well, Daniel?" I forced a smile and lied, like a baby. Her reply still chills me, "That's good. You'll need your rest for what's coming." That was the morning I decided to install cameras around my property. Something in me. The rational part, the part that once trusted reason, needed proof. That night, I caught something I still can't explain. At 3:05 a.m., the motion sensor went off. The footage showed my backyard, empty at first. Then, for a brief second, the camera glitched. When the image returned, she was there. Mrs. Lorne. Standing perfectly still, facing my back door, smiling into the lens. And then, the sound. A whisper. Soft but clear. "Don't look where you shouldn't." The camera cut to static. That was the moment I stopped feeling like a new homeowner. That was when I became something else, an unwelcome guest in someone else's design. The perfect neighborhood wasn't perfect. It was staged. And I was the newest piece of the puzzle. It's strange how quickly fear becomes routine. After a week of seeing her face on that security footage, I convinced myself it was some glitch, a trick of bad wiring, anything but what it looked like. But denial doesn't last long when the walls start whispering. It began on a Thursday night. I remember because I'd been drinking cheap whiskey, staring at the security monitor like a paranoid wreck. Everything was still, until I heard it. A soft, dragging sound behind the living room wall. Like nails. Or maybe something crawling. At first, I thought it was rats. Old houses, right? They all have pests. But when I pressed my ear against the wall, I heard something I can never unhear. A voice. Faint, almost childlike. Whispering, "Help me." I stumbled back, heart racing, the glass slipping from my hand and shattering on the floor. I stared at the wall like it might start bleeding. That night, I didn't sleep. By morning, I convinced myself I had imagined it. Stress. Insomnia. My therapist used to say I assign meaning to noise. I repeated that phrase like a mantra every time something strange happened. But meaning finds you whether you assign it or not. The next day, I visited Mrs. Lorne. I needed, to look her in the eye again. Maybe she'd mention something, anything, to make sense of what I was hearing. She opened the door before I could even knock. Like she'd been waiting. "Daniel," she said, her voice calm and smooth. "I was just about to check on you. I heard noises last night." That froze me. "How could you hear that?" "I didn't." "Oh, I hear everything," she interrupted, smiling. "The walls in these homes, they have memory. They keep what we leave behind." I laughed nervously, pretending it was a joke. She didn't laugh. Her eyes wandered to my wrist, the one I'd cut years ago, the one still marked. And she said, softly, "You've been chosen for something, you know. Pain makes a person receptive." Before I could respond, she closed the door. That night, the noise came again, louder, more desperate. The voice behind the wall wasn't whispering anymore. It was screaming. "Let me out." I ripped the drywall open with a hammer, expecting rats, pipes, anything human. But inside, there was nothing. No wires. No insulation. Just an empty cavity, and a small, folded photograph. When I unfolded it, my stomach dropped. It was a picture of me. Taken from across the street. And behind me, blurred but visible, was Mrs. Lorne. The next morning, I called the police. They checked her house, politely, like she was some harmless grandmother. When they came back, one of the officers smiled awkwardly and said, "She's fine, sir. Sweet lady. Bakes for half the neighborhood." I asked if they checked her basement. They said she didn't have one. But that couldn't be true. I'd seen people walk down her steps at night, into the dark beneath her house. When I tried to insist, they just exchanged looks, the kind that say, "This guy's unstable." I guess my medical record didn't help. That evening, there was a knock at my door. I froze. When I opened it, there was no one there, just another basket of muffins. Still warm. Attached was a note written in elegant cursive, "The walls listen, Daniel. Be careful what you tell them." I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. The noise kept going, moving from wall to wall, following me from room to room like it knew where I was. At one point, I thought I heard my own voice behind the plaster, repeating things I'd said earlier that day. By dawn, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my car, ready to drive, anywhere. But when I stepped outside, the entire street was waiting. Every house. Every neighbor. Smiling. Each one holding a basket of muffins. That's when I realized the truth. This wasn't a neighborhood. It was a circle. And I wasn't living next to the perfect neighbor. I was surrounded by them. Identical smiles. Identical voices. And in that moment, I swear to you, they all blinked at the same time. They say you can't truly feel madness setting in until it's already moved inside you. For me, it started the morning I found the note. It was slipped under my door sometime after dawn. I remember the paper, thick, yellowed, almost like parchment. The handwriting was identical to Mrs. Lorne's, looping and elegant. It said, "If you really want to understand, come tonight. Bring a candle. Don't tell the walls." I should have burned it. I should have driven away, never looked back. But curiosity has teeth, and mine sank deep. That night, the whole neighborhood looked dead. Not quiet, dead. No lights, no sounds, not even the rustle of wind through the trees. It felt like the entire world was holding its breath. I took the candle, lit it, and crossed the street. Her front door was open. No light inside, just a faint hum, the same tone I'd heard through my walls for weeks. It vibrated in my chest, deep and low, like standing too close to a generator. I stepped inside. The house smelled of wax, lavender, and something metallic. Something old. Every surface was spotless, almost unnaturally clean. No dust, no clutter, not even family photos. The only thing out of place was the floor. A faint circular groove carved into the hardwood, spanning the living room. In the center, a trapdoor. That's when I saw it, the handle. A brass ring, polished like it had been touched hundreds of times. And beside it, carved into the wood, a single word, home. The candle flickered violently as I lifted the door. A breath of cold air escaped from below, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of damp soil and iron that I told myself it was just a basement. Every house has one, right? But as I descended the steps, my phone lost service. The air grew heavier, thicker. The humming grew louder. At the bottom, I found myself in a narrow corridor lined with old wallpaper, the same pattern as my house. The same scuffs, the same faint water stains. Every few feet, there was a door. Each one labeled with a number written in chalk. I counted them as I passed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each door had something behind it. Breathing. Slow, synchronized breathing, as if the walls themselves were alive. And then, at the end of the hall, I saw a final door. It wasn't numbered. It had my name on it. I didn't want to open it. Every part of my body screamed run. But my hand moved anyway, slow, shaking, desperate for truth. When I turned the knob, the humming stopped. And what I saw inside. It wasn't a room. It was a mirror. An enormous, floor-to-ceiling mirror, but the reflection wasn't mine. It was another version of me. Paler. Thinner. His eyes sunken and wide, like he hadn't slept in years. He smiled. And the sound that came from his mouth wasn't words, it was that same humming. Then I realized something terrifying, the voice behind my walls, had been him. I stepped back, shaking. The reflection moved closer, pressing its hand against the glass. I felt warmth, real warmth, radiating through the surface. Then, faintly, a whisper, "You were never supposed to move in. You were supposed to stay outside." The glass rippled, like water. His hand sank into it. He grabbed my wrist. I pulled away, and when I did, a piece of my skin tore like wet paper. I ran. I didn't think, didn't look back. I stumbled up the stairs and burst into the street, gasping for air. But when I looked around, the houses were different. Older. Boarded up. The lawns dead. There were no lights, no neighbors, no sound. Just the faint hum, drifting from every direction, from every house. I wasn't in Maplewood anymore. Or maybe I was, but in the version that came after. The walls back home still move. Sometimes I see hands pressing from the inside. Sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear her voice whisper, "He's still waiting." And sometimes, when I pass a mirror, I swear I see him smiling back. I've been recording this for I don't even know how long anymore. The clocks don't work. The sun rises, but it doesn't move. And the hum, the one that started behind my walls, it's everywhere now. If you're hearing this, it means I managed to get the story out before they silence me too. The night I ran from her basement, I didn't sleep. I didn't stop moving. I thought if I just kept going, I could leave that cursed neighborhood behind. But Maplewood Lane never ended. I drove for hours. Past the same white picket fences, the same mailbox, the same house, hers. Every turn brought me back to number 23. When I realized I was trapped, I started laughing. The kind of laughter that hurts your ribs, the kind that means you've gone too far to come back. And then the laughter stopped. Because I heard it again. The knock. Slow. Measured. Coming from inside the car. 3 knocks. Then silence. I looked into the rearview mirror. And she was sitting in the back seat. Mrs. Lorne. Hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes bright and empty all at once. "Daniel," she said softly, "you should have stayed where we put you." I turned to face her, but she wasn't there anymore. Only the faint smell of lavender. And on the fogged window beside me, a single word traced in delicate handwriting. "Welcome home." I don't remember getting back inside. But I did. My house looked different. The wallpaper was new. The furniture was clean again. It was like time had reset, or like someone had replaced me while I was gone. And then I saw the journal on the table. My journal. But the handwriting wasn't mine. Page after page, in neat cursive, was a record of everything I'd done, every word I'd said since moving in. At the bottom of the last page, one sentence stood out, freshly written. "He's beginning to remember." That's when the power went out. The hum stopped completely. For the first time in weeks, the house was silent. Then, that sound. The last knock. Slow. Deep. Coming from inside the wall behind me. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. It was like something was holding me there, a pressure in my chest, a weight in the air. The drywall began to crack, just slightly. And then, through the split, I saw it, a sliver of glass. A mirror. On the other side, me. The other Daniel. He smiled, just like before. But this time, he spoke. "Thank you for keeping my place warm." He reached through the wall, and I felt fingers, cold, but human, grip my arm. And then everything went black. When I woke up, it was morning. The birds were singing. The sunlight was warm. Everything was normal. I looked outside. Kids were playing. Neighbors waved. And Mrs. Lorne was watering her roses, smiling at me from across the lawn. "Good morning, Daniel," she called cheerfully. "Sleep well?" And I heard my own voice, calm, steady, unfamiliar, say, like a baby. But it wasn't me speaking. I could feel the words leaving my mouth, but someone else was behind them. Someone else was inside. They say the perfect neighborhood doesn't exist. They're wrong. It exists here, perfectly still, perfectly quiet. A loop that never ends. And every time someone moves in, someone else moves out, of themselves. If you're hearing this, don't come looking for me. Don't look for Maplewood Lane. Because once you find it, you never leave. You just switch places.